Senator Cruz. Now recognize the ranking member of the subcommittee, Mr. Thune, for his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the opportunity to work with you on the working group. I think there are a number of areas in the Universal Service Fund programs that have been needed oversight and reform, and looking at ways that we can make those work more efficiently. And so I look forward to our continued efforts in that regard. And thank you for having the hearing this morning. Thank you to all our witnesses for being here. Let me start by saying that an internet connection provides significant opportunities to run a business, provide health care, or do homework. And as a member who represents a rural state, I remain committed to the bipartisan principle of universal service and ensuring that Americans in all parts of the country have access to communication services comparable in quality and price to those in urban areas. Today, we're here to examine the state of broadband affordability programs. The FCC has a long history with broadband affordability through its Lifeline program, as has been mentioned, which, despite existing for nearly 40 years, has not been a broad success story. A carefully designed, properly administered broadband affordability program to help those Americans who, without a subsidy, would be unable to afford a reasonable level of connectivity is an important part of universal service. But unfortunately, the FCC's Lifeline program, which is currently part of the Universal Service Fund, has not lived up to this promise. The rampant waste, fraud, and abuse within the Lifeline program has been well documented over the years. Unfortunately, much like the FCC's Lifeline program, the Affordable Connectivity Program, or ACP, seems to be plagued with similar inefficiencies. ACP, what initially began as a program to help consumers stay connected during the pandemic, was expanded, as many government programs tend to be, into a much broader and much more expensive program. As is currently designed, ACP does a poor job of directing support to those who truly need it, namely those who would not get service without a subsidy. With overly broad eligibility criteria, ACP allows over 40% of American households to receive a subsidy. If all of the eligible households were enabled, or I should say were enrolled into ACP, the program would cost the taxpayer over $19 billion annually. The inefficiencies in both Lifeline and ACP are in large part a direct result of the FCC's failure to set performance goals and address the fundamental question of whether or not either of these programs are an effective means of increasing adoption among low-income consumers. Without performance goals, we have no evidence to support that ACP or Lifeline are effective in connecting non-subscribers to the internet. The FCC's own survey, Senator Cruz pointed out, indicates that at least, or I should say at best, about 22% of the current ACP subscribers did not have an internet connection prior to ACP. It is imperative that the FCC conduct such an analysis so that we can make informed decisions on the future of broadband affordability programs for truly low-income Americans. And simply saying 23 million households will lose broadband if ACP does not receive new funding is not undertaking a fundamental analysis. The American people deserve better, and we need an honest assessment of how to best deliver services to those actually in need. To that end, I appreciate Senator Lujan's work leading the USF working group with me and other members of this committee to address the needs and shortfalls of the USF programs. We also must recognize the federal government will not solve the digital divide on its own. The United States' light touch regulatory approach to broadband policy has resulted in telecommunications providers in South Dakota and the rest of the country making network reliability, affordability, and resiliency a priority. During the pandemic, when demand for reliable internet soared, U.S. broadband providers were able to keep Americans connected, which was not the case in other countries. And now as ACP winds down, I appreciate how the private sector is stepping up, turning to low-income programs they offered prior to ACP. The White House and some in Congress have called on companies to continue offering free service to consumers despite ACP dollars running out. This, of course, is akin to rate regulation and demonstrates that what Democrats have wanted all along. The efforts to promote quality and affordable broadband are under attack by the Biden FCC. Just last week, the FCC once again asserted broad new government powers over the internet using rules that were designed for telephone monopolies back during the Great Depression. The last time these heavy-handed regulations were imposed, as Senator Cruz pointed out, broadband investment declined. And there's good reason to believe this will happen again. These new rules would also imperil the United States' position at the forefront of Internet innovation. Biden's FCC should be focused on addressing real challenges, such as reducing regulatory burdens and thus the cost for broadband, not searching for a problem where one doesn't exist. Before I close, I'd also like to add that I hope we can hear from the FCC directly about their broadband affordability programs and many other important issues. It's unacceptable that this committee has not held an oversight hearing of the FCC for over 1,400 days. I appreciate each of our witnesses for being here today and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.